The studio audience clapped loudly as the cameras rolled for another live episode of The View. Bright lights reflected across the polished stage, while the hosts exchanged smiles and prepared for what everyone expected to be a routine celebrity interview. Producers moved quietly behind the cameras, checking cues and timing. Nobody in the room realized the atmosphere was about to shift in a way viewers would talk about for weeks. Willie Nelson walked onto the stage slowly, wearing his signature braids, denim shirt, and calm smile. The crowd erupted with applause the moment they saw him. Even the band backstage seemed excited to have such a legendary guest in the studio. Willie tipped his hat politely and greeted the hosts with a relaxed nod before settling into his chair. At first, the conversation felt light and friendly. The hosts asked about his music, touring life, and the secret behind his energy at his age. Willie answered each question with his usual soft humor and laid-back charm. The audience laughed warmly whenever he delivered one of his dry jokes. Everything appeared perfectly normal, but as the interview continued, the tone slowly began to change. Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair with a skeptical expression. She crossed her arms slightly and began asking questions that sounded less playful and more confrontational. At first, Willie remained calm. He smiled politely and answered carefully, refusing to let the tension affect him. Joy brought up controversial topics surrounding politics, celebrity activism, and comments Willie had made during past interviews. Her voice carried a sharper tone now, and the audience noticed it immediately. A few uncomfortable murmurs spread through the studio. Willie stayed composed. "I've always believed people should talk to each other respectfully," he said calmly. "Even when they disagree." The crowd applauded softly. Joy interrupted before the applause fully faded. "But don't you think some celebrities avoid responsibility by staying neutral?" she asked. Willie looked at her quietly for a moment before answering. "I think kindness matters more than shouting." A few people in the audience clapped louder this time. Joy gave a short laugh that sounded more irritated than amused. "That sounds nice, but the world doesn't work that way anymore." The tension became impossible to ignore. One of the other hosts attempted to redirect the conversation toward Willie's latest music project, but Joy quickly returned to the debate. She questioned whether entertainers should use their platforms more aggressively and implied that staying calm during heated social issues was outdated. Willie leaned back slightly in his chair, completely relaxed despite the pressure building around him. His expression never changed. "You know," he said softly, "people are tired of anger." The room grew quiet. He continued speaking in the same calm voice. "Everywhere you look, people yell at each other. Nobody listens anymore. Everybody wants to win the argument instead of understanding each other." The audience listened carefully now. Willie glanced toward Joy without raising his voice once. "You don't change hearts by humiliating people." A loud wave of applause filled the studio. Joy's smile disappeared. She tried to respond quickly, but the audience reaction had already shifted the energy in the room. Even some staff members standing behind the cameras exchanged nervous looks. Willie hadn't attacked anyone personally, yet his words seemed to hit harder than any insult could have. Joy attempted another sarcastic comment. "So now everyone should just sit around singing songs while the world burns?" A few gasps came from the crowd. Willie smiled gently. "Well," he replied, "music's healed a lot more people than television arguments." The audience exploded with applause and laughter. Several people even stood up clapping. For the first time during the segment, Joy appeared visibly frustrated. She adjusted her papers sharply on the desk and shook her head, while the applause continued around her. The producers were reportedly signaling for a commercial break, but the moment kept growing bigger. Willie remained completely calm. "I've been around a long time," he continued. "I've seen people divided before. What scares me isn't disagreement. What scares me is when people forget how to treat each other like human beings." The studio fell silent again. Even the co-hosts seemed unsure how to respond. Joy finally leaned back in her chair with an exhausted expression. "I can't do this," she muttered, loud enough for nearby microphones to catch it. The audience reacted immediately. One of the hosts attempted to laugh awkwardly and lighten the mood. But Joy removed her earpiece and stood up from the table. Cameras quickly shifted angles while producers scrambled backstage. Some viewers thought it was part of the show at first, but Joy continued walking off stage. The audience buzzed with confusion and shock. Meanwhile, Willie simply sat quietly, hands folded together, looking almost uncomfortable about the chaos unfolding around him. He never celebrated the moment or mocked her reaction. If anything, he seemed disappointed that the conversation had reached that point. After several tense seconds, another host tried to recover the broadcast. "Well," she said nervously, "that was unexpected." Willie gave a small smile. "Everybody has hard days," he answered gently. That response changed the atmosphere once again. The crowd applauded even louder than before. Instead of escalating the conflict, Willie had completely diffused it with calmness and humility. Social media clips from the interview spread online within minutes. Millions of viewers praised the country legend for refusing to engage in personal attacks while still standing firm in his beliefs. By the end of the episode, the conversation across the internet wasn't really about politics anymore. It was about composure. Viewers debated whether television had become too focused on outrage and confrontation. Many people admired the way Willie handled pressure without ever raising his voice. As the show wrapped up, Willie thanked the audience warmly and tipped his hat once more before leaving the stage. The crowd gave him a standing ovation that lasted nearly a full minute. Backstage workers later described the studio atmosphere as tense but unforgettable. Some said they had never seen a guest remain so calm during such an uncomfortable live moment. And while headlines online exaggerated parts of the story, throughout the following days, one thing remained clear to everyone who watched it happen live. The loudest person in the room wasn't the one people remembered most.